Hi, my name is Kaylee. I am a gut health nutrition coach. I help people to overcome their gut issues and digestive issues with the principles of ancestral nutrition as well as holistic health principles. So today in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I overcame my over a decade of chronic constipation and IBS. So this is not your typical video talking about constipation and IBS. I'm not going to tell you to eat more fiber. I'm not going to tell you that all you need to do is drink more water, take a supplement, take a laxative, or just avoid FODMAPS. Any of that advice you've probably heard a million times that just doesn't seem to work. That's not what I'm going to tell you. Instead, I am going to tell you about my own personal story, how, like I said, I overcame over 10 years of this. And then I'm going to give you my 5 main tips for overcoming IBS and chronic constipation. So yeah, first I just want to start by talking about my own story. So I have had IBS, which is kind of a loose term. So IBS is pretty much if you have chronic issues, if you have like constipation, bloating, abdominal pain, gas, sometimes diarrhea, sometimes alternating constipation and diarrhea. If you have a lot of these issues and they just don't really fit into another category, like you clearly don't have ulcers on your colon, so you don't have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, or yeah, if you just don't fit into any other category, then you have, then you pretty much just have IBS. So it is a pretty loose term, but basically that's what I'm talking about. So I've had that and constipation for a very long time, or I had it for a very long time. So my mom says when I was really little, maybe around like 4 or 5, is kind of the earliest she can remember me having it. So pretty much I just had a really hard time going to the bathroom. I'd go like 2 to 3 times a week was my normal for, yeah, like I said, over 10 years. And I always had a lot of like abdominal pain. I'd have like just kind of cramps, bloating, gas. I was the stinky fart kid. Yeah, I had a lot of digestive issues, and they were there since I was a kid. They got really, really bad in high school. So when I was like 14, 15, 16, they were at their worst. I lost a lot of weight. I was malnourished. I had a really bad constipation then, and I just felt really weak in my digestive system. I was like never hungry. So yeah, that's where I was. And eventually I figured out what to do. I went to school, studied nutrition, studied gut health, figured out what to do. So now I'm at a place where I can actually have daily bowel movements. I don't have abdominal pain. I don't have digestive discomfort. I don't have stinky farts. I don't have any of those things anymore. So in this video, I just want to talk about the 5 main things I did. Obviously, there are more than 5 things that I did, but these are the 5 things that I think made the biggest difference for me, and I've noticed make the biggest difference for my clients as well. So number 1 is eating more animal foods. So I didn't eat a lot of animal foods growing up. I was vegetarian pretty early on, and that was when I was 8. And I was vegetarian for almost 10 years, vegan for a chunk of that time. And I noticed the more plants I ate and the less animal products I ate, the worse my digestion felt. And I'll get into why more plants can cause issues in a second. But first, I just want to talk about why animal foods are so great, which if you have followed any of my other work, followed me on my Instagram, looked at my website, anything like that, you'll know that I love lots of animal foods now. But basically, they are the most nutrient-dense foods out there, and I will definitely talk about this in another video. But yeah, animal foods are super nutrient-rich, much more nutrient-rich than plants. They have nutrients in the right forms. We're actually able to absorb them. We're actually able to use them very efficiently. So by including lots of animal foods, that's dairy, meat, every cut of meat pretty much. So eating more nose to tail, eating eggs, all of these things are super, super nutrient rich, and they help to heal your gut lining. They help your body to make more digestive enzymes so you can digest properly. They don't lead to as much gas and bloating, which I'll get into in a second. But yeah, they're just super, super healing foods. They're really easy to digest as well. So when you're having trouble digesting like anything and any food seems to give you symptoms, eating more animal foods is really, really powerful for that. So that's my number one. My number two is to eat less plant foods, particularly very high fiber foods and foods that are high in anti-nutrients. So I'm going to talk about anti-nutrients in a whole nother video, but basically fiber and anti-nutrients, if you don't know, can be very hard on our digestive system. So we do need some fiber, so there's a balance here. But if you are already backed up, fiber adds more bulk to your stools. So if you add more bulk to where you're already backed up, that's only gonna make it worse. That's like adding more cars to a traffic jam. So you want to most likely decrease your fiber. Everyone's a little different in where their fiber sweet spot is. But if you've been pounding the fiber down, I'd really encourage you to decrease that. That made a huge difference for me. Fiber can also kind of scrape at our gut lining. It feeds the gut bacteria, which is good and bad because it doesn't feed selectively. So whatever you have gets fed. So if you have gut dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in your gut microbiome, lots of bad bacteria and not very many good ones, you will get a lot of gas and bloating. And this gas can actually cause constipation or diarrhea. So gut dysbiosis is super, super common when you have constipation or IBS. So you want to ease off the fiber so you're not feeding those bad guys so much. And there's stuff you can do to rebalance that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So basically, to kind of recap that, too many plants can be kind of difficult to digest. It adds a lot of undigestible material to your digestive tract. If you're already backed up, that doesn't work out very well. Anti-nutrients. So those are compounds in plants. They're plant defense mechanisms. So it's the plant's way of defending itself, but it's also the plant's way of storing nutrients, which means that these compounds like oxalates and lectins and phytic acid and those kinds of things, tannins, some of them bind to nutrients and prevent absorption, so that can lead to nutrient deficiencies, which we don't want. But yeah, anti-nutrients can also be harmful to our gut lining. Lectins, for example, which are common in grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, can actually puncture holes in our gut lining and cause leaky gut. So by decreasing foods that are rich in anti-nutrients, which the main ones are grains, nuts, legumes, and seeds, that is really, really helpful for your digestive tract and your gut health. So yeah, that's number two. Just don't go crazy on the plants. You know, everyone's a little different, but when you are thinking about what plants to include, try to get fruit and like cooked veggies, stuff that's just a little bit easier for us. So those are the first two. My third one is to exercise more. So I've always exercised a lot, but my main form of exercise was dance. I did ballet for 13 years. And yeah, that was awesome. But I actually noticed when I started to weightlift and run, it helped me have more regular bowel movements. It stimulated my appetite and it just helped my digestive system function better. So I think there's something to be said for slightly more intense physical activity. Yeah, especially in the morning. I don't know. I just find that if I work out in the morning, lift some weights, go on a run, something like that, it just helps things move along to have your morning bowel movement. So yeah, that's another one, you know, exercise, try to do something a little more intense maybe too. Then my fourth one is to get into a morning bowel movement routine. So this helped me so much. Because in high school, when I had my worst digestive issues, that was also when I had not much time in the morning to have a bowel movement before I had to rush off to school. And I was always terrified of being late to school. I don't think I was ever late to school. I can't even recall a time I was ever late, but I was always terrified of being late. So that did not help me to have a bowel movement before school because I was just so worried about being late and I just didn't have enough time to relax. So once I got to college and I didn't have classes like first thing in the morning and I actually had a little more time, I noticed it was so much easier to have regular bowel movements, because you probably heard the morning is usually a time it works best for people. You know, it doesn't have to be the morning, but a lot of people do well when they have a morning bowel movement. So I think by getting in a routine and having a time you usually go, this is really helpful for your body. And then when you go, you can't fixate on it. I used to fixate on it so hard when I had constipation, and you know, I'm sitting there like, why won't this happen? It's so close, but it won't happen. That does not help. Instead, you need to relax and not think about it. So actually just going on your phone or reading a book or something that takes your mind off of it and just sitting there is super helpful. Also, if you sit in more of a squat-like position, I know that can sound weird. Some people will get little like stools to put next to their toilet, but anyway, if you sit in more of a squat-like position, it aligns your body more naturally, like how you would outside in the woods, and that makes it a lot easier to go as well. But the main thing is just having a time that you usually go, and you can't be stressed during that time, or I guarantee you it won't work, because your anus is actually a sphincter, and sphincters tighten up when you're stressed and they dilate more when you're relaxed. It's the same thing with birth as well. If you're stressed, it will delay the cervix, which is also a sphincter, from opening. You have to be relaxed to give birth, and you have to be relaxed to poop. So yeah, get a nice good morning routine there and just decrease stress overall, manage that, and it'll be a lot easier. So then that was my fourth. So my fifth one is to just improve the health and function of your entire digestive system and gut. So your whole digestive system, everything that comes before the next step affects that step. So it starts with before you even put food in your mouth. Smelling the food in the air actually triggers saliva, which helps you digest more. You've got to be in a relaxed state to properly digest your food. So these early steps actually can affect constipation, believe it or not, because if you don't digest your food well enough in your mouth, if you're not eating slowly, chewing thoroughly, if you're not relaxed, then it's not as digested as it should have been when your food gets to your stomach, and then your stomach has to work harder, and it might not be able to do as much as it should have done. And then when it gets to the small intestine, the large intestine, anyway, the burden gets passed on. So we want to optimize the function of every area of your digestive health. So yeah, that's a whole video in and of itself, but just a few tips for optimizing your digestive health and optimizing your gut health as well is eat slowly. So when you sit down to eat, take a few deep breaths, make sure you're in a relaxed state, make sure you're a little bit hungry. So do that, and chew your food thoroughly. Just don't rush through your meal. And then let's see, eat easier to digest food. So if you follow those first two tips, that will help with that. Those are like just a few things to focus on. Also, if you include more fermented foods, that can help rebalance your gut microbiome as well. So there's my few tips, and I'll give you more in another video because that's a big topic. So those are the main 5 things that I did to heal my IBS and chronic constipation. And like I said, these 5 things work phenomenally for my clients as well. A lot of people come to me constipated, and within about 6 to 8 weeks, they're having 4 or 5, maybe even more bowel movements a week. Actually, it's usually 5 plus. So, so these things work really, really well. Again, to recap, my 5 main things are to eat more animal foods, eat less plant foods, especially nuts, seeds, legumes, and grains, to exercise more, to get into a morning bowel movement routine, one where you're not stressed, where you're not overly fixating on it. And then the final one is to improve the health and function of your entire digestive system and gut. So yeah, those are my main things. I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it and you know someone else who could benefit from it, consider sharing it with them. You can always like or comment or subscribe as well. That helps me out. And yeah, I'll be sharing more videos about gut health, digestive health, and ancestral nutrition in the near future. So thank you for watching.